Hiya everyone. First off, I just wanted to say a massive thank you to everyone on behalf of me and my mum for all the positive, lovely comments that you all left on my last video about my mum becoming a year sober. We're just so lucky and so blessed to have so many loving, understanding people as, you know, our friends, family and stuff. And although there's still a lot to be done to change the stigma of addiction, we're heading on the right track. So thank you on behalf of both of us. Today I will be talking a little bit about mine and my mum's story in addiction, and yeah, I'm going to be speaking a little bit about my mum's journey from my perspective, a little bit about how I felt and what I went through as a result of that. Got like notes here, so if I look down it's maybe just because I've lost my train of thought or I'm just trying to remember what I'm trying to say. I'll do a little trigger warning if you're sensitive to things like addiction, mental health and suicide. Just be careful when you're watching it because I will be mentioning all those. So let's just get into this. Right, so with my mum's story, she had the sort of typical teenage opinion, sort of start to alcohol. Around the age 15, 16 she started to drink, and just like how many people do, she'd be sober through the week and then as soon as Friday hit she would get a bottle or get a can or whatever beside her and be drinking it. And this, sorry, I had to clear my throat there. And this went on till I was about 6, so I mean it'd been going on for a while. That's when my auntie started to see signs that something was wrong there. She would start drinking more through the week. She'd drink in secret. She'd be hiding like cider bottles and stuff like that. And then also she would have a lot of mental issues due to the alcohol, where she would start to like hear voices and like see things, and she was thinking the neighbours were saying like really horrible things about her, like calling her a bad mum and stuff like that. And as soon as my auntie like went to approach the neighbours, they'd be clueless because they didn't have a clue what she was talking about because they never said anything. So this led to a lot of my mum being admitted to the psychiatric ward 30, which all they did really was they took her there, they got her to a point where she was sober and basically had her out. Like, they didn't help her in any way, they just kind of made sure that she was sober and then sent her on her way. And she had like, she was developing a lot of like paranoia and stuff like that. She would think that people were following her when no one was following her. She ended up losing her job because of the alcohol, and when I was around the age of 6, around the age of 8 and 9, she decided to leave without me and leave me in the hands of my auntie Maggie, who has been absolutely amazing to me. I mean, I could have been in the care system or anything, but no, she was persistent that she was going to take care of me, and she's done an amazing job of it. So yeah, thank you to Maggie for that. But yeah, I pleaded to my mum not to go, but she decided what she thought was best at the time, which was to leave me with my auntie. And she moved to what I'll call the drinking house, because that's all they really did. They didn't really take care of themselves, they didn't do anything apart from drink. And sometimes they would send my mum back here on occasions when either she wasn't well or she didn't have any money left or something like that, so we could get her back on her feet just for them to basically come down and ask her to move back up with them, like the people who lived there, which my mum always did. without a second thought, really. But that's what it felt like to me anyway. So I had a lot of like abandonment issues, which would be a problem later on in life due to that. When I was around 13, my mum started to really not feel well. She started spewing up blood and stuff, which had her rushed to hospital because it's just not normal. And by that point they estimated she wouldn't live to be 40. She was sleeping constantly. She had so much damage done to her liver. We just felt like we were just waiting for the end to come, which thankfully it never did. Thankfully she recovered well and stuff, even though she had her liver damage. She kept on like getting infections and stuff like that. But she lived there for about a year in the hospital when they told her that she could come home afterwards. But as soon as she came home, she started to drink again. She started to hear voices again and see things, and she had like carers who came every sort of 2 times a day to see her, but eventually it got too much for them to be able to go and see her with the way she was. And my auntie got called in from work a few times because to deal with whatever my mum was doing at the time. And it got to the point where Maggie, she couldn't leave her work to look after my mum full time. She couldn't afford it, so we had to end up making the difficult decision to send her away again. So she got moved to a care home in Airdrie, which it was just too much her being there because we could only maybe see her like once a week, and it was just too much to drive there and back all the time. So we got her moved to somewhere a bit closer, which is like accommodated housing. So she's living independently, having carers come in two times a day, making sure that she's getting fed, she gets her tablets, she gets everything that she needs, and it's a lot better for that way. So she's closer to family if we need to help her with anything or anything like that. During this point when she's living there, from moving out of Airdrie up until now, well, up until maybe a year ago, she kept having lapses. It would never be relapses, it would always be lapses, where she'd maybe go and binge drink for 2 days or something like that every like 6 months, 8 months, whatever. And she started to have a lot of problems with her balancing and stuff. So she, about 3 years ago or something, she fell and broke her arm when she was drunk. And she's had multiple surgeries on it, but it's just never really healed. And at one point about 2 years ago, she was in her house. It was just me and her in the house, and she fell down the stairs, and it basically ended up having a broken ankle. And just like with the arm, she has had multiple surgeries on it. It's just never really healed, and I don't know if it'll ever get better or if it'll stay like that or anything. During this point, she also struggled with using like the cheap sort of 39p energy drinks as a substitution for the alcohol, and it got so bad to the point where she ended up, the doctors were more worried about her kidneys than her liver, so she done that damage. I remember about a year and a half ago she was in hospital getting stuff done to her arm, they were trying to fix her arm, but they took away one of her tablets because maybe because it would affect like the antibiotic she was on or something at the time, but it was the one for her hallucinations. So she started to hallucinate afterwards, and I was there, and it was really scary. She got really paranoid. She was hearing voices, she thought there was a concert going on in the ward next door. She screamed and swore at the nurses. She thought they were going to hurt me. She thought they were going to hurt her. She would tell me to go over and stand with her, and it was pretty scary. It's probably the scariest experience I've had with her that I can remember. Yeah. But these days she's a lot better. She's just reached a year sober. During the pandemic, she's turning 50 this year, and she's just a wee miracle, and we're all so proud of her. So I'll talk a little bit about how it's affected me, and I think the biggest way it's affected me is my self-esteem and my self-confidence. Just, I think, as I said before, having abandonment issues and stuff like that, it's just really been hard, like trying to figure out what people's thoughts are of me, and having these sort of negative thoughts that people don't like me, think I'm weird, because as a child I was quite quiet. So I always thought that people didn't approach me because they didn't like me and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, it's affected my self-esteem a lot, and my anxiety that I've now figured out is anxiety that I've got after I got diagnosed with it, but I'll talk a bit more about my mental health later. I also dealt with a lot of self-blame, thinking it was my fault that my mum, for example, when my mum fell down the stairs, it was because due to my mental health issues. Actually, the day before that, I'd attempted to take my own life, and my family wanted, well, my auntie and my uncle wanted my mum to be up in the house with me that day so that she could keep an eye on me, make sure that I didn't do anything more to myself, and then she happened to that day fall down the stairs, and so for a while I was just blaming myself for that, thinking it was my fault that she broke her leg. I don't really know. I think, yeah, I don't really know. But I'd also blame myself because, just for being born really sometimes, because I just feel like my biological dad was never in my life, ever. I've never met him. So I'd always thought maybe because she was a sort of single parent bringing up her daughter by herself, even though she had a lot of people there for her to help her and stuff, that it was just too much, just the thought of even bringing up a child by yourself, like without the dad sort of thing. I just always thought that was maybe something that caused her alcoholism, and I think there's everybody around me is like convincing me, or they've always told me it's not my fault and stuff like that, and I do want to believe them, and it's maybe just something that we'll never really know the answer to as to why. It could be a multiple different things that caused it, but yeah, I'm working through that, and we're getting somewhere. When I was in primary school, still the end of primary school, I did get a bit of counselling when all this started, but it was only like once a week for 6 weeks, and honestly the only coping mechanism that the woman taught me that I remember is to write a letter to my mum and rip it up. So yeah, 6 weeks just isn't really enough counselling to give to someone. Plus I don't feel like it's really affected me until I became an adult, so it's kind of tough. One thing that I've realised though that I did use as a coping mechanism that I just never thought of as a coping mechanism was food. I think around the time that my mum left and all this stuff is when I started to really eat a lot, and as you can probably tell, I'm a bit overweight, and I've always kind of struggled with my body and loving my body, but I don't know, we're getting somewhere. I'm eating a bit healthier now and stuff, so that's good. I've had a lot of mental health issues due to this, understandably I think. As I said earlier, I've like attempted suicide more than once, I'll admit. I got diagnosed with depression and anxiety, but I also kind of got diagnosed with traits of borderline personality disorder, or emotionally unstable personality disorder, whichever one you want to call it, when I had an appointment with a psychiatrist. But it's not been anything like official or anything like that, but I mean, I do see a lot of the traits in it do apply to me. And then also, I suppose, like, I have used, I will just say that I feel like I have used alcohol in the past I can kind of understand how alcoholism can come about, because I've used it as a way to cope when things go really bad. Like, for example, the best example I can give is the last time my mum had a lapse about a year ago. I had a party to go to with my stepdad that night. So I went there, and I did end up drinking a little bit more than I probably should have, but just to block out that issue that was kind of hard to deal with at the time. Now I'm doing a lot better now though. I'm going to like therapy, doing what I can to help myself. I started volunteering with the Fourth Valley Recovery Community, so that gave me a lot of purpose and kind of helped me understand who I want to be, and yeah, it just helped a lot. I've also been in contact with Scottish Families Affected by Alcohol and Drugs, which is an organisation which is there to help families of addicts, like their family members, deal with, learn how to cope with their family members that are in addiction. And they recently started a young persons group, which is for people like me who are children of addicts. And it's helped to have people that I can relate to on a personal level, and just to know that you're not alone and that your feelings are really valid, whatever you feel towards your parents. And I'm enjoying it. It's really nice. Now I'll just talk a little bit about things that have made me be able to cope lately, and things that I've been able to do and have made me feel like it's easier to deal with all of my issues now. And one thing that I would recommend to anyone who has a family member in addiction is don't give up on them. Please don't give up on them. Please try and fight for them to hear you, and fight for them to really try and get the help they need. And because I've once thought that my mum was never going to become better. I've once thought that my mum was a lost cause and that she just wouldn't have a good life. But I mean, anyone could get in my position now, so yeah, I would definitely say don't give up on them. However, I will say just keep note of your boundaries and just make sure that you're setting them and you're keeping them there, because I've lately had to deal with a lot of stress because my mum just seemed to want to phone me a lot and stuff like that, and I didn't really have time to be there for her beck and call all the time, which I used to do. Every time she phoned me, I would answer. I would go and see her whenever she wanted to and do whatever crazy thing she wanted me to do, just to kind of do whatever. But I mean, you have to be taking care of yourself before you can take care of anyone else, so just make sure you're setting boundaries and making sure you have some you time. Another thing that I will talk about that I need to do a bit more of is self-care. And by self-care, this can be something as simple as having some time to get candles out and have a bubble bath and all this stuff, or it can be like, one thing that's helped me a lot with self-care is I've started going to art therapy about a year and a half ago or something, and it's really helped me to be able to speak to someone who isn't really involved in the situation and just kind of get advice from them, and just have someone who's like trained to deal with like all of that, those kind of issues, and have someone who I feel like I can open up to a bit and trust, that I've learned to trust them and all that kind of stuff. So definitely be doing what you need to do for that particular time to get through the situation. And also just do things that you like to do. So for example, when I took up the ukulele, I thought I was just going to be an impulsive buy that I would never touch, but I mean, since then I've learned a bunch of songs, I've wrote a bunch of songs that I'm not always happy with, but people seem to like them, and I enjoy using them to get my feelings out there. And you know, I like to draw, and I've got an art degree, but I do like to doodle, and I don't know if I'll ever get a job in art anymore. I used to want to, but I think lately I've just decided it's maybe not what I want to do, and that's okay. It was just part of my journey of learning who I am, and I feel like if I didn't do the art course, or the art courses to get the degree, I wouldn't have learned so quickly that it was maybe not what I want to do as a career. And that's okay. So the main things that I would take from what I just said are: don't give up on your family member, keep boundaries, put them in place and keep them there. Look after yourself and do things you enjoy. And yeah, I think that's me covered about all I wanted to talk about. So if you made it this far, thank you for listening to my little spiel. And if you want to, you can share it. It's up to you, but yeah, thank you for watching, and see you later.